أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين السلام على المهدي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Previously, we ended with talking about the second definite sign, and that is the character of al-Yamani, a person emerging from Yemen. Today we will be talking about the third sign, and that is al-Khorasani, a character, a person, a leader that will emerge from Khorasan. Now, before we discuss the character of al-Khorasani, there are a number of things I want you to keep in mind when we're discussing this personality. Number one, and the most important, is that al-Khorasani is not a definite sign. ليس محتوم. Unlike the other signs, the character or the personality of al-Sufyani and the personality of al-Yamani, these ones are classified by the narrations of the al-Bayt alayhim salam to be definite signs, which means they must happen before the emergence of Imam Al-Mahdi alayhi salam, before the appearance of Imam Al-Mahdi alayhi salam. While the Khorasani, the riwayat, the narration does not classify him to be a definite sign. That being said, it means that the character or the personality of Khorasani, since he's not a definite sign, so there's a big chance that we would not see this person emerging. That's what not definite means. So definite sign, they must happen. Signs which are not definite, they could not happen. They might happen, but also the possibility of them not happening is also very high as well. That's the first point. The second point, when we're talking about the definite signs, based on the narrations of the al-Bayt alayhim salam, they only mentioned 9 signs which are definite. We mentioned al-Imam Mahdi alayhi salam being the first. He's the most and first definite sign. The second being al-Sufyani, and the third being al-Yamani. And inshallah, throughout this series, we will talk about the rest of the definite signs that the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim said must happen before the rising of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi as-salam. The second point I want to bring to your minds, when we look at the narrations of the Ahlul-Bayt alayhim as-salam concerning Khorasan, the area of Khorasan, plenty of things will happen in that region, amongst which are the black flags. There are many narrations that we have regarding black flags. Now, a lot of people associate the black flags with the Khorasani, and that's not true. The Ahlul-Bayt alayhim salam, they said there are flags of Khorasan, flags from Khorasan, flags from the east. So they keep mentioning different parts, and each narration mentions something different. And they are not related. These flags, who leads them and how they happen and what they do, the narrations talks about them differently. So we cannot associate them to the Khorasani or to be all included in the movement of Khorasani. They could happen years before him, many, many years before the emergence of Khorasani. Even though the Khorasani himself, his flag is black, but it doesn't mean that every narration that talks about black flags is talking about the Khorasani. Keep that in mind. Another point relating to the black flags, most of the narrations that we have related to the black flags are actually from the book of Al-Malaham wal-Fitan for a person by the name of Ibn Hammad. And Ibn Hammad, he is not a Shi'i in faith. He's from Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And most of the hadiths are not from the Imam, and therefore we can't really take them as reliable sources compared to the words of the infallible, the words of the Ma'soom, alayhi as-salam. So keep that in mind. Another point I want to make when we talk about the Khorasani, there are a number of characters that will emerge from Khorasan. One being al-Hasani, a character that will emerge before al-Khorasani, which is a Husayni in descent. Al-Hasani is from Imam al-Hasan, and the Khorasani is from Imam al-Husayn by descent. So we have these two characters. The riwayat also talks about a youth, Sabihul Wajh. He has a luminous face. Riwayat narration talks about a youth that has dark complexion. Riwayat talks about Shu'aib ibn Salih being a commander. So there are plenty of characters, but the riwayat, the narrations of the al-Bayt alayhim salam, does not go into too much details of who they are. And that's why a lot of people assume that all these personalities are actually one, which is al-Khorasani. So when they read the narrations of the Khorasani, they do not make a distinction between the personalities, and they assume, yeah, this narration calls him al-Hasani, this narration calls him al-Husayni, this narration calls him a youth, this narration calls him that, and that's really a big mistake we do when we read the narrations of the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim without being careful of how to distinguish one narration from the other. So that's something also you need to keep in mind when we're discussing the character of al-Khorasani. The last point I want to mention regarding al-Khorasani is a nickname, not a name. So anyone that comes from the direction of Khorasan can be called al-Khorasani. It could be anybody. It could be a revolutionary person. It could be a normal person that starts a revolution. He could be a commander of some sort. He could be a leader of some sort. The narrations of the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim do not specify what kind of person he is. He will definitely lead. He will definitely start an army. But who is he? No one knows. Is he related to Iran in any way? Because now when we say Khorasan, everyone assumes that Khorasan is Iran, which is a big, big mistake. Khorasan has nothing to do with Iran. Yes, parts of Khorasan falls in the land of Iran, because we have the old Khorasan and we have the new Khorasan. The new Khorasan is literally Iran. When you say Khorasan, it literally means Iran. Now, back in the day, at the time of the Imams alayhim salam, when we say Khorasan, it includes Afghanistan, it includes parts of Pakistan, Tajikistan, sometimes even includes area in China. So we cannot say that Khorasan that the al-Bayt talk about are Iran, and therefore the Khorasani, he must be an Iranian. Who says that? In fact, we have other narrations from the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim. When they talk about the Khorasani, they say it is Imam al-Mahdi himself. Sometimes they refer to him as the Khorasani in some narrations from the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim. So we have to be very careful not to be very quick to say, okay, Khorasan is Iran, and this guy is from Iran, and he must be from Iran, and it must be this guy, or it could be this guy. We can't do that, because the narrations of the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim are time sensitive and personality sensitive. So we cannot just pass judgments ourselves on the narrations of the al-Bayt alayhim salam. We have to be very careful when we discuss and dissect the narrations of the al-Bayt alayhim salam. Now, having said these points, let's go back to the Khorasani himself. Now, the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim, based on the narrations, when they discuss the personality of al-Khorasani, he will emerge at the same time as the Sufyani in Syria and the Yamani in Yemen. Now, as the movement of the Sufyani begins and he moves towards Iraq and he starts to invade Baghdad and invades Kufa, which is Najaf today, and he starts to kill people in Najaf, the Yamani will rise. So the Yamani, he will try to march towards Kufa, or at least he tries to slow the movement of the Sufyani. So he's a resistant movement. As he's doing so, at the same time, the Khorasani will emerge as well. and he will become a support. There's a kind of, based on the narrations, there's kind of what we call it, syncing between the two. There's a cooperation between the Yamani and the Khorasani. And they both walk into this area. So the Khorasani will come from Iran and he will enter Iraq, and he will come from the east. He will enter Iraq through Iran, and he will defeat and fight the army of the Sufyani. So the Yamani is from one direction and the Khorasani is from another direction. So the Khorasani is more like of a support force to the Yamani force, because the riwayat of the al-Bayt talk about the Khorasani not being definite while the Yamani being definite. Now, having said that, when the Khorasani emerges and he moves in towards Iraq, he will defeat these armies. Being an army himself, like we said, it doesn't mean that he has to be the leader in Iran. He has to be the president or the supreme leader or someone in charge of the forces in Iran. We don't have any narration that says that. Based on the narrations, we have the Hassani, the guy before the Khorasani. He will also have his own uprising and he would have his own movements in Iran. So in Iran, based on the narration at the time of the Dhuhr of the Imam, it seems like it's in a disarray. It seems like there is a lot of problems within the country itself. So we cannot say he has to be an Iranian leader or from Iran. But all we know is that he will support the Shia of Iraq. Now, we saw that in 2015 when ISIS invaded Iraq and they took down a couple of cities. Now, the only people that came to their aid and to their help actually was the Iranians. Now, when Iraq as a government, the government of Iraq, they wanted weapons because they had no weapons. The Americans refused to give them weapons. Russia refused to give them weapons. The Gulf countries refused to give them weapons because they're all, they're all the partners in the same game, because they wanted Iraq to fall. The only country that opened its doors and its gates and opened their weapons to Iraq was actually Iran, and that's documented. That's not something that anyone could reject. Haj Qasim and the people in Iran, they opened the doors to the Iraqis and they gave them as much weapon as they wanted. They gave them men, they gave them all the expertise, and due to that, they were able to defeat ISIS in Iraq. If it wasn't the intervention of the Iranians, Iraq would have fallen under the hands of ISIS. So in the same way that happened in 2015, where Iran came to the support of Iraq, we will see the same support coming during the emergence of al-Sufyani when he invades Iraq. So definitely we can tell that the Iranians would not keep quiet when they see the Shia being massacred and Najaf being invaded. They for sure going to come to Iraq. When they come, the person that will be leading that army would be the Khorasani himself. Now let us go to the narrations of the al-Bayt salamullah alayhim in regards to al-Khorasani, and then we'll end this video with that. The first hadith is from Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi. He says, Abu Basir asks Imam al-Sadiq, he says to him, جُعِلْتُ فِدَاكَ, may I be your ransom. مَتَى خُرُوجُ الْقَائِمِ, when will the riser come? The Imam says to him, Ya Aba Muhammad, إِنَّا أَهْلُ بَيْتٌ لَا نُوَقِّتُ, we are the household, we do not give timings to things. And he says, وَقَدْ قَالَ مُحَمَّدٌ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلَهِ كَذِبَ الْوَقَّاتُونَ, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever times, in fact, is a liar. Having said that, the Imam said, إِنَّ قَدَّامَ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ خَمْسُ عَلَامَاتٍ, before the emergence of Imam Mahdi and the rising of Imam Mahdi, 5 signs. He says, أَوَّلَهُنَّ النِّدَاءُ فِي شَهْرِ رَمَضَانِ, the first is the call in the month of Ramadan. وَخُرُوجُ السُّفْيَانِي, and the emergence of al-Sufyani, which we spoke about. وَخُرُوجُ الْخَرَسَانِي, and the emergence of the Khorasani. وَقَتْلُ النَّفْسِ الزَّكِيَّةِ, and the killing of the pure soul. وَخَسْفٌ فِي الْبَيْدَ, the sinking in the land. Now, in this hadith is very interesting because it mentioned 4 definite signs. Al-Sufyani being a definite sign, the call being a definite sign, the sinking is a definite sign, the killing of the pure soul is a definite sign. The only definite sign did not mention here is al-Yamani. It is as if this Yamani character was replaced with the Khorasani, and that's why people assume he is to be a definite sign, which is not. Now, did the Imam alayhi salam, he himself, replace al-Yamani with al-Khorasani, or did the narrators switch the names? Because based on the context of the hadith itself, it talks about 5 definite signs. Yet, the Khorasani is not a definite sign, but the Yamani is. Is that how the hadith was from the Imam, or was it played with? Now, that's a different discussion for another day. Another hadith from Imam al-Baqir salamullah alayhi, he says, لا بد لبني فلان أن يملكوا. The sons of this person, they must rule. فإذا ملكوا ثم اختلفوا. Once they rule, then they're going to have a problem with themselves. تفرق ملكهم وتشتت. They will divide, and their mulk, their kingdom, will be divided as well. حتى يخرج عليهم الخرساني والسفياني. While they are in this state of being divided, the Banu Fulan, who are Banu Fulan? The Amma called them Banu al-Abbas. Now, who are Banu al-Abbas? Because the dynasty of Banu Abbas is gone. But the al-Bayt, they say that Banu Abbas will come back. How? Again, that's another discussion for another day. So here he says, as Banu al-Abbas in Iraq, they are divided and their kingdom is divided, and they're having issues with themselves, between themselves, the Sufyani will emerge, and so will the Khorasani. Another narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi, he says, while the people are fighting each other, because it's a long sermon of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, خرج إذ أقبلت خيل اليماني والخرساني. While people being in this state, the horses of the Yamani will come towards Iraq, and the horses of the Khorasani will come towards Iraq. So we can see, based on the narrations of the al-Bayt, there is a cooperation between the character and the leader, the Yamani leader, and the Khorasani leader. As him emerging in the month of Rajab, we did say, from the narrations from the al-Bayt alayhim salam, that said that the Sufyani and the Yamani, being definite signs, they will emerge in the month of Rajab. We discussed that. And now we have narration that adds another character to the list, a third player, a third leader, a Khorasani. So for example, the narration from Imam Baqir salamullah alayhi, he says, خروج السفياني واليماني والخرساني في سنة واحدة في شهر واحد في يوم واحد نظام كنظام الخرز. He says the emergence of the Sufyani, the Yamani, and Khorasani, all of them, they will come in the same year, same month, same day. Since the Sufyani and Yamani will emerge in Rajab, that means the Khorasani will also emerge in the month of Rajab. Another hadith from Imam al-Sadiq salamullah alayhi says, خروج الثلاثة, the emergence of the 3, al-Khorasani being the first, as-Sufyani second, wal-Yamani, and the person from Yemen, في سنة واحدة في شهر واحد في يوم واحد, in the same year, same month, same day. So based on these narrations, we understand that as the Khorasani emerge, the Yamani will emerge, and the character, the leader of Khorasan, will emerge, all in the same year, same month, same day, which is in the month of Rajab. So finally, I want to say this. When it comes to the narrations of the Khorasani, for those who do their search, please be careful, as the narrations are kind of, sometimes they collide with each other. Sometimes it talks about different characters. Sometimes it talks about the black flags. Sometimes it talks about Iran as a country and the movement of Iran as a country. And in most of the times, you'll find that they are not related to each other. So when you read these narrations, try to be very careful. Inshallah, in the next episodes, we will continue talking about the definite signs. Until then, I leave you in the love, mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.